pastorate, I was in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Great church, wonderful people. I was preaching a sermon one day, and that sermon was about being everything that God wanted you to be, and not to let anything in your life be more important than God. And so I use several illustrations about if God were to let you definitely know that you needed to stop doing something or quit doing something or even to start doing something, would you be willing to do that? Is God important enough in your life that you would stop? And so one of the illustrations that I used, I said, for instance, I said, how about that daily coffee when you get up in the morning? What if God were to impress upon you, and there was no doubt in your mind that it was God that was speaking to you, and that was that you needed to quit drinking coffee? I said, do you love God enough that you would be willing to quit drinking coffee? And then I had other illustrations too, and it wasn't a sermon on coffee because I like coffee myself. But anyway, like a week passed by, and I was, before church started one morning, I was in the fellowship hall, and someone was in there fixing coffee, and they didn't know that I was there. And then I heard the person fixing the coffee said, I hope it's okay to still fix this coffee because the preacher preached that sermon about how we shouldn't be drinking coffee anymore. Well, you have to be careful about those illustrations sometimes. Well, my name is Richard Coleman, and I'm the pastor at Shepherd Church of the Nazarene in Lexington, South Carolina, and it's great to spend just a few moments with you today. The Israelites had been in the desert after leaving Egypt for a couple of months. God met with Moses up on a mountain, and there was the people of Israel were all around that mountain watching what was going on. And I mean, God made an impressive visit. There was lightning flashes and all kinds of things that were going on to let the people know that God was doing something special. But during that time with Moses, God gave him 10 commandments that Moses was supposed to pass on to the people. And you know, at that time, but there was no law. We had thousands and thousands of people that Moses was leading, and there was no particular law to go by. Moses had to just make all the decisions, whether something was right or something was wrong. And so God wanted to give them some basics that they needed to follow. I guess you could say maybe some no-brainers. There's 10 things here that's really important that you need to follow. And I was looking at some of those, and the first thing that God said was that you shall have no other gods before me. He said, you know, you guys just came out of Egypt where they worshiped everything that was, visible. I mean, they worshiped the sun, they worshiped the moon, they worshiped the water, they worshiped whatever it was. They seemed to have a God for so many things. And God said, you need to understand there's only one God, and that's me, and you shall have no other gods before you. And then he went on and he told them, he said, and I don't want you making some idol. I don't want you to get a piece of wood and carve some kind of Buddha or whatever it may be. I don't want you to have any type of idol that you bow down and you worship that piece of wood or that stone or whatever it is. You don't need to do that. We worship God in spirit. And then he went on and he said, and I don't want the people to misuse my name. God is a holy God, and he said, I don't want them just to use my name just in any sentence or when they hit their finger or whenever they want to exclaim something that is even wonderful. I don't want people misusing my name. I can only imagine in the world in which we live how God looks down and sees his name misused so much. But if we're going to put God first, we need to understand that he's a holy God with a holy name. And then the fourth commandment that he had was remember the Sabbath to keep it holy. Lot of discussion, a lot of things that we could talk about that. But the thing that I'm thinking of in this context, because the first 4 commands are about loving God. And so the Sabbath was actually created for us so that we could rest our minds and rest our bodies. And if we don't do that on the Sabbath, then there's a price that we pay mentally and physically. But in addition to that, God, I believe, wants us to love Him so much that we're willing to give Him a day. He wants us to give Him 10% of our income, but He wants us to give Him 1/7 of our time. Could we actually take a day and say, you know, this is a day I'm going to set aside. I'm not going to do any work. I'm going to worship, and it's going to be a relaxing day. I want to be able to look at God's creation and appreciate the beauty of all that God has created. Can we actually love God enough to give Him a day? And so I look at those first 4 commandments, and they're all about loving God. They asked Jesus one time, they said, if we needed to just keep one commandment, I mean, that, you know, what will be the very most important commandment that we could keep? And Jesus didn't call out one of the 10. Instead, He went to Deuteronomy, and He said, the most important commandment is to love the Lord with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and all your strength. You see, those first 4 commandments are about loving God. Let's work on that. Well, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May His face shine upon you. May you truly be able to concentrate on loving God with all who you are this week. Thanks for taking the time and viewing today.